guys, today I'm going to show you how to crochet this cute little Pokeball. These sell really well at my open markets. I always actually sell out of these guys, almost always. Usually if I have any left, it's like 2 or 3. But people of all ages love these Pokeballs. Sometimes I like to add a little keychain to the top, and they're just a really big hit. People will put them on their backpacks. Adults love them too. They're just really easy to make, kind of a classic Pokeball look. So let's get started. I actually also have this free pattern posted on my Instagram, but if you'd like, you can go ahead and take a screenshot of the pattern that's on the screen now so that you can follow along more easily as I walk you through this tutorial. Let me know in the comments below if you want any other tutorials or anything that you would like for me to show you how to make. Alright guys, so here are the things that you'll need to make your Pokeballs. First, I used a 5mm hook for my Premier Parfait Chunky yarn. I think this is bulky yarn, number 6 weight yarn. So it's pretty chunky, and I used my 5mm hook with that. You'll also need some scissors or something to cut your yarn with. Because I'm using this plush type of yarn, I like to use a lighter. You'll need a stitch marker and a darning needle, and also some stuffing. I like to use acrylic yarn to start off my magic rings when I'm doing plushy type yarn, because when you just do a magic ring with just this yarn, it can often kind of get bunched up on itself and be hard to close that magic ring. So I always start my magic rings with acrylic yarn of the same color yarn that I'll be using for the actual plushie. Lastly, I just have myself some tea here, so go ahead and grab yourself a cozy drink and we'll get started. I'll be starting with the red part of the Pokeball. So I'm gonna make a slip knot so that I can start off my magic ring with the acrylic yarn. Take the tail end of the yarn, wrap the other end around my fingers and make an X. Insert my hook below this strand here and hook the other strand and pull it through. This is what that looks like. And then I like to add my slip knot of the plush yarn onto my hook and pull through. And now I just make my stitches into the magic ring and continue as normal. So I'm going to start off with 6 slip stitches into my magic ring. And then I can pull both tails of the magic ring so I can go ahead and close it. And once I've closed the magic ring, I'm going to do 1 slip stitch into that first stitch that I made. Now after each round of this pattern, I'll be doing a slip stitch. To make sure that I'm evening out the rounds, we want this to be as even as possible when we are creating our Pokeball. So now I'm going to go ahead and tie off that acrylic yarn that I used for the magic ring, and I'll cut that yarn too, just to get it out of the way. Alright, so now we have 6 single crochets in a magic ring. I added an extra slip stitch just to kind of even out the round. And now I'll be doing 6 increases all the way around. So I'm going to increase in each stitch, which is 2 single crochets in each stitch around, and we'll end up having 12 stitches at the end of this second round. Again, I'm going to slip stitch to finish off that round, place my stitch marker back into that last stitch. I always mark the last stitches. Sometimes people like to mark the first stitch, but it's just really a matter of personal preference. So for the third round, I'll be doing a single crochet in the first stitch and then an increase in the next stitch, and I'll repeat that all the way around, and we'll end up with 18 stitches. Again, to finish off that round, I'm going to do one extra slip stitch just to make sure it's nice and round. And for the fourth round, I'm going to do 2 single crochets and then an increase and repeat that all the way around. Again, I'm going to slip stitch to finish off the round, and then for the next round, round 5, I'm just going to single crochet in each stitch all around, and that'll leave me with the 24 stitches that we have here. So 1 single crochet all around. Alright, and I'll do my last slip stitch to finish up that round. Now at this point, we're going to do an invisible color change to black. Now to do your invisible color change, what you're going to do is insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop of the original color that you were using, which is red in this case. Then I'm going to pull through with the new color, which is black in this case. And you're going to repeat that all around. So we're doing invisible color changes with single crochets. So again, I'm going to insert and pull through with red, and then yarn over and pull through with black. You're just going to continue to do that all the way around. I try not to make these stitches too tight because naturally they kind of tighten up when you're using this method. But again, inserting, and the first loop you pull up is red and the next loop will be black, all the way around. Alright, and then I like to slip stitch into the first black stitch using only the black yarn. And we've completed our round of invisible color changes, and that just helps the line stay pretty, the color change to stay pretty seamless. So instead of getting a super jagged edge, you kind of just get more of a straight line there. So we don't need that red yarn anymore. I'm just going to cut the yarn. And again, I like to burn the ends when I'm using chenille yarn so that it doesn't fray off. And then I like to tie these 2 tails together a couple of times, 2 or 3 knots, just to make sure that they're secure. Now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to add white yarn. So we're going to invisible color change with white now. So again, insert your hook into the next stitch and pull through, so you have 2 black loops here. And then we're going to pull through with our white and do that all the way around. Insert into the next stitch. I know it can be hard to see with black yarn. You're going to pull through a black loop and then pull through a white loop. Insert, pull through with black, and then pull through with white. And again, that just helps us to get a nice, clean color change. It's a little bit less jagged than a normal color change would be. Like I said, it can get a little bit tight in these stitches. Sometimes if it's too tight, I'll switch to a smaller hook to insert and pull through the black yarn, and then I'll go back to my regular hook to finish the stitch if necessary. It's not always necessary. I try to make those stitches a little bit looser, but when you're invisible color changing, it naturally becomes a little bit tighter. And again, I'm just going to do one final slip stitch in white. And at this point, we don't need that black anymore. You can do the same thing, just cut it off, iron the ends. And then I like to tie up those two tails, just to make sure they're nice and secure. Now at this point, we don't need to do an extra slip stitch at the end of each round, because that was really just to make sure that the color changes are as kind of smooth as possible. So now we'll just continue on with the pattern. We're going to do one more round of single crochet in white, and we'll just go all the way around, one single crochet in each stitch. And again, if it's a little too tight, you can take that smaller hook that you have, if you have one, to help you pull through these tighter stitches. So we're almost done with the main ball. For this next round, we're just going to do 2 single crochets and a decrease, and you'll do that all the way around. And again, you don't need an extra slip stitch now, because we're not really worried about evening out the rounds because we're not color changing anymore. So for the next round, you'll do 1 single crochet and a decrease, and repeat that all the way around. I forgot to mention, I always use invisible decreases, but you can use any decreasing method that you prefer. At this point, I like to add my stuffing. And at this point, you'll do 1 final round of decreases. Now fasten off with a tail so that you can sew this hole closed. Make sure you add any final stuffing that you want to add before you close the hole. And then you can go ahead and take your darning needle or tapestry needle and close up that hole, and I just go through the front loops only of each stitch. Pull it tight, but not so tight that you break the yarn. And I just kind of weave in the tail a bit. And this is what the Pokeball ends up looking like. You can see where our color changes and the end of the round was, but that's okay because we're gonna cover that up with a button. And once you cover it up, it makes that black line a little bit more even in appearance. So we're gonna make the button now. So for the button, we'll start off with white yarn. And again, I'm going to use acrylic yarn to start my magic ring. So I'm going to make a slip knot with my plush yarn. I'll take my white yarn, again holding the tail end, wrap it around my fingers in an X, go underneath and pull through. Then I'll go ahead and add my plush yarn and pull through that. And I'm ready to start my stitches. So again, we'll start with 6 single crochets in the magic ring. Close it off. And I'll do another slip stitch. Just to round out the magic ring. At this point I can just fasten off my acrylic yarn. I like to tie it in the back just to make sure that it's nice and secure. Okay, cut that off. At this point I'm actually going to fasten off with the white. You don't need a tail for it. And I'll just pull that tail through to the back to get it out the way. And what I'll do now is attach my black yarn. So I'm going to make a slip knot with the black yarn, insert my hook into the back loops only of one of the stitches of the button. I'll pull through with my black yarn, and I'm actually going to slip stitch in each back loops only stitch. Oops. And I'll go ahead and make one extra slip stitch to kind of round out the round. And there we have our button. So I'm going to fasten off with a tail so that I can sew this onto my Pokeball. And I like to place my Pokeball button right on top of that seam that we have from the color changes and the end of the round into the start of the next round. So I just place my button right on top of that. I'm going to pin it down with some extra darning needles that I have, just so that it stays in place. And then I'll go ahead and sew it onto my Pokeball with my other darning needle. This is why sewing with chenille is so much fun. I like to weave this end through the stitches of the black stripe just to kind of secure it in place a little bit. And that is your finished Pokeball. These sell really well for me. Sometimes I add a little keychain to the top and people love that. Sometimes people just kind of like it as a regular plushie for a little stress ball, a little toy. But these are super popular with people of all ages. Kids love them, adults love them, and I almost always sell out of my Pokeballs when I make them for my open markets. I didn't make any for Anime Boston, unfortunately, but they would have sold so well at Anime Boston. I just ran out of time. But yeah, that's your Pokeball. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to reach out. Make sure you follow my Instagram, leave me a like, a comment, and make sure that you're subscribed for more tutorials, videos on where to find free patterns, and other awesome crochet discussions. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Bye.